how off is the recommended daily amount of grams of sugar on any given packages, right? So if you look at any processed food or any packaged food, it will say this is 30% of your daily amount. How wrong is the daily amount?
Well, so the American Heart Association recommends no more than 25 grams of added sugar, I think for women, and 50 grams for men, something like that. But we don't need any of this sugar. We don't need to eat any sweet stuff at all. Your body does not need sugar to live. So that is an upper limit, if you will. Yeah. That's an upper limit.
Yeah, whereas like we're seeing it as the basic requirement.
Yeah, it's like saying, I don't know, 3 cigarettes are allowed a day. It's like, it doesn't mean you should smoke cigarettes. It means like that's the upper limit after which real problems start happening. But it's better to have 0. But then what these recommendations don't take into account is, when are you eating the sugar? Is it first thing in the morning? So you're increasing inflammation, brain fog, increasing risk of diabetes, hurting your mitochondria, having cravings, aging faster? Or is it after a lunch that had fiber at the beginning of a meal, where the impact is going to be way less hardcore on your health? So if you just keep eating the same amount of sugar as you're eating, but you just change when you're eating it,
that's the first step.
You're already going to see a big impact on your health.
And then second step could be reducing amounts.
For sure. And naturally, because you're not creating that cycle of addiction, you're going to have fewer cravings for the sugar anyway. There's this other really cool study I want to tell you about. So scientists put participants in an fMRI scanner. You know, those big donut scanners. Okay, so they were looking at their brain activity. And as the participants were in the scanner, there was a screen in front of their eyes. And the screen showed images of food. Chocolate cake, donut, broccoli, burger, etc. And the scientist asked the participants to rate how much they wanted to eat that food from 1 to 10. Okay, like 1 is like, I don't care. 10 is like, I want to eat this right now. And the participants were hooked up to a machine that was measuring their glucose levels in real time. And this is what the scientists found. They found that when people's glucose levels were steady, they were rating all the foods like 5-ish. Burger, 5-ish. Broccoli, 5-ish. So, you know, no particular cravings. But then when the participants' glucose levels were dropping, 2 things happened. First thing, on the brain scan, the craving center was activating. And second thing, they started rating all of the sweet foods really highly, okay? And that just goes to show that you cannot control these cravings. They come from a deep part of your brain that goes onto alert mode when your glucose levels are crashing, because it is a dangerous thing for the body, right? Your body doesn't know that that crash came from a spike because you just ate 15 donuts. Your body thinks it's low on energy. And so all this to say that as you steady your glucose levels, this craving center will activate less and less. So naturally, you're not going to want to eat as much sugar. And you're going to switch from a situation in which you were controlled by those cravings to a situation in which you'll eat the sugar you really like for pleasure, for enjoyment, without feeling controlled. So instead of feeling like, oh my God, I need to eat something sweet right now, give me anything, any chocolate bar, it's more like, you know what? Tomorrow, I want to go to my favorite bakery and get my favorite pastry. You know, from a sense of like agency and strength and boundaries versus being a victim to that sugar addiction.
You can have that delayed gratification.
Exactly.
No, that's huge. I mean, 2 things that really help me with this, and I notice when I'm weaker, and this obviously happens with the amount of travel I do, and I totally notice how that impacts my desire for more sugar. And I found that one of the biggest commitments I had to make was eating my meals on time every day. And that started to reduce cravings. So when I was having breakfast at a certain time, lunch at a certain time, and dinner at a certain time, I found myself having less cravings and filling the gaps with less sugar. When I was missing breakfast, I was missing lunch, and then I was trying to make up for it, then I'd be willing to take anything, as you're saying. And the second thing I found was when I had poor sleep. So when I was sleeping badly or I wasn't sleeping enough, I would wake up craving sugar to want to get me to the next meal. And then naturally, I'm going to have all these things that aren't great for me because I just haven't slept well. And I found that those 2 things had a massive impact. But how is what you're saying having an impact on the other way? So I'm saying how these lifestyle choices impact my glucose cravings, but how are our glucose levels impacting our sleep?
For example, sleep. So sleep and glucose go hand in hand. And so what you're describing is if you wake up and you haven't slept well, you have more cravings. And you know what else happens, which is kind of unfortunate, is that when your body is tired, it cannot regulate your glucose levels as well. So anything you eat will create a bigger glucose spike.
Right.
So for example, if you have that cake on a day when you're rested versus a day when you're super exhausted, the exhausted day, the cake will make a bigger spike. You're eating the same cake, but it's creating a bigger spike. Therefore, a bigger crash, therefore more cravings. And so when we're tired, we tend to crave more sweet foods, and that makes a bigger spike and a bigger drop. And then, in turn, being on a glucose roller coaster also makes your sleep that night worse, not as deep, not as restorative. So you start this vicious cycle. Okay, here's what to do to break the cycle. First of all, use the hacks when you wake up, right? So if you're tired, have a savory breakfast. Second thing to sort of reset your glucose balance is to exercise, even just 5 minutes. So next time you wake up and you're tired, do 5 minutes of jumping jacks. Put on a YouTube video, 5 minutes, exercise. Anything that's going to get your muscles working is going to help you manage your glucose levels better that day. And then as you steady your glucose levels, you will notice you will sleep better. And often people will tell me that they used to wake up in the middle of the night with a pounding heart, sweats. That can be because your glucose levels are crashing as you're sleeping.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why in my study, so many people improved their sleep, not by taking sleeping pills, not by changing what's happening in their bedroom, just by changing how they're eating.
Yeah.
Everything is connected, Jay. You cannot just look at one thing in isolation. When you improve your glucose levels, so many systems in your body improve. It's remarkable. So you might be entering this because you want less inflammation or fewer cravings. But then what happens is you realize, oh, my skin is better. Oh, I sleep better. Oh, my mood has improved. All these amazing side effects. It's really beautiful to watch.